Hello, if anyone's there. Doesn't look like anyone's here yet. That's okay. I'll sit and wait. Connection is unstable. None there. Russ, Rochelle, Paul, Frederick. Got your message, Frederick. Very interesting. I'll get a message to you as soon as I can. Super duper busy, but it's a concern. It's an ongoing concern for everybody, especially with someone with your experience with all that. How long did you train judo? Like about 20 years or so, which tells me you're probably very experienced, which means you have a depth of knowledge. Us, Mike, Rob De Souza, good to see you guys. We have Florida, Canada, Sweden, Tassie, Redcliffe. So Frederick, you know, with all that experience, man, 20 plus years, I'd say, of judo or so, maybe I counted wrong. I read it quickly. It needs to be recognized. Us, Mike, us. Oh, hi, Gabby. Did you go to Quebec or did they come over? Gabby, oh, look, normally I have my, hey, Daniel, good to see you. Give me 1 second. In the meantime, just admire that priceless original Van Gogh painting. This, see that mug? The Canadian word that can change any sentence into a question. See, Gabby gave me that, Rochelle. Oh, you had a Zoom. Yeah, good. Hope everyone's well. Hey, Daniel. Us, Shihan, Mike, Harry, we're from everywhere. Hope you're well. Got my beard going on. Look, as always, I love to report on great developments going on. I've had some really good feedback. I've got the forward in the book by Masayama, another one by Bobby Lowe, of course, and I have another one by someone that I'm pretty excited about. And it's pretty well confirmed. You know, we've got emails going backwards and forwards about the photos and so on. But until I actually get the forward in my hand, knowing how busy he is, or Smack, good to see you. Knowing how busy he is, I won't say who it is, but it's pretty exciting. Sven, good to see you. Hope you're well. So anyway, I'm going to read today, but I wanted to read, rather than read off the computer, I'm going to read off the MacBook, because what I've done, and I know it's going to be difficult to see, but let me just fix that. So what this is, I'll go right to the front. Well, I won't go all the way to the front because that'll give it all away. But this is the book, getting ready for the book. For those who know the book, you'll recognize that some of it is unchanged. This is straight out of the book. I've added the photo of, I've added one photo before, I just had that, but I've added one with Solsai in there and another one here with Shihan Bobby Lowe, who was one of my heroes. And I've got the new forward on the next page. There's the contents page, which is pretty exciting. Look, damn, I think I just gave it away, did I? I clicked the wrong side, didn't I? But this is the book. So as you can see, it's really starting to come together. I love that illustration. Let's see that one there. That's actually a pen, not a pen, a brush, like a black ink brush, a calligraphy brush illustration I did. But I just love how, if you look really close up, you can see that it's a brush. You see, it's just like a whole bunch of brush strokes. See that? It's just by brush strokes. But then when you look at it from a distance, it almost looks photographic. I just love how artwork can create that that suggestion of what you're trying to do with nothing but chiaroscuro. Any Italians out there will like that word. Chiaroscuro. My friend Patty, you're Italian. Do you know what chiaroscuro means? That's one of my favorite Italian words. But anyway, this is pretty exciting. This is the whole book coming through. Exciting. And in the initial section, they're mostly photos. You can see there I've actually included whole sections with my own current students, because remember, all these guys in this photo, like that guy there, he started training with me when he was 6. Now he's an adult living in there you go, chiaroscuro. That's right. It means the light, it means the shade, the light and dark. And it's a beautiful word that is usually used to describe the use of light and dark to create an image in painting. But it also, I've seen it used, chiaroscuro, I've seen it used to describe the ups and downs of life, you know, the dark times and the light times. But these guys here, that one there on the top, what am I doing? I'm pointing. This one here, he started training when he was 6, and the one underneath is his younger brother. No, he started training with me when he was 8. His younger brother started at 6. Now they're fully grown men. The top one, he's off in Tokyo studying. He's teaching and also, but he's training over there. So but anyway, what I've done is I've added a few pictures, obviously, because I think the expansion of kata bunkai into grappling is very important, and you've only got to touch gloves once with a good wrestler or judo boy, and then end up on your back wondering, with your ears ringing, wondering what the heck happened, to realize that you need to do something about it. Hey, Shane, good to see you, man. So this is the early part of the book, as you'll see, is mostly pictures from the original book, but the content, I've added tons of it. And now you start to see some of the illustrations. So I've added illustrations. That's Wakaki Sensei. That was Masayama's strength weight training instructor. Very famous guy. And I've started to add more and more. There's John Blooming there. That's with Jean LaBelle. I'm sure I showed you that last week. But anyway, and that's some great shots of Big Jacques Sandolescu. The boys, this is the team. This one here's the team training, getting ready to train for the Muay Thai bout in 63 and then 64. And that's Fujihiro, of course. And this is the section on the kickboxing match. That there is another illustration I did. You should be able to recognize that simply from the stance. But both of these guys were so very kind to me and my father. When my father was very ill, he only had a few weeks to live. Both Benny the Jet here and Bill Superfoot Wallace came around to my house and spent a whole afternoon, 4 or 5 hours. They were in Australia with a buddy, Glenn Coxon, and Glenn Coxon and everyone were up at my dojo. I'd known Bill and Benny from many years earlier because I interviewed Benny in 1980 and Bill, I think, in about 1980 for a magazine column I had. So we remained friends. When they came back in 1990 was when my dad was very ill, and they came and spent some beautiful hours with my father, and I'll never forget their kindness because it really made my dad's day, and he was very ill, so he actually he passed on a few weeks after that. So it was very kind of them because he was a big fan of theirs. If you're a New Zealander, there's Hunchy Doug Holloway. Some New Zealanders know, some don't, that Doug Holloway was actually the first non-Japanese how old it is. It's the original floor and very old there. Another picture of Solsai, Mr. and Mrs. Oyama, Solsai. So what I did is I went back and I redid all the kanji. I rewrote all the kanji, and some of these I think I even added my chop and name when I wrote the kanji. So I've got the whole lot in. I don't know if I'll be able to do that little red seal, the chop, but that little red touch I think adds beautifully to the image. So this is the book as we go through. This one I had a little bit of a play. I think that really captures one of my students named Gary O'Neill. That captures him really well. But what I did was, oh man, that is so good, Paddy. Paddy's got Doug Holloway on his podcast tonight. Well, that's so good. You can tell him that you've seen his picture in the book now. That's great. But he's got some real history. But anyway, getting back to this illustration, what I did there is I don't know anything about computers. All these illustrations were done by hand. But what I've done here is I was watching a tutorial online about how to add flare and movement. And so what I did is I just played with it a bit, and I added that flare to give the sense of movement. How does that look? I think it was kind of fun doing it. But I tried not to do it too much because my graphic designer, Willie, wouldn't let me. He just said, you know, one of the things you need to remember is that the simplicity of the black and white illustrations that I did in the first one is one of the charms, one of the things that made the book kind of unique. That's another illustration I did of Celso. You remember that. You've probably seen the original photo of it. These are just all Yamaoka Teshu. He's my favorite samurai. I probably prefer him even more so than Miyamoto Musashi. So there we go. I even rewrote this kanji as well. And these are actually, these kanji we're turning into T-shirts. We'll be able to sell the T-shirts as well. So this is another one that I did that flare thing, but this one I, did it differently. They're just experiments. We may not even stick with it. But anyway, here we go. This is the book. We can flick all the way through. I did some illustrations. The book's never about me. I could put a couple in, but I hardly mention my name at all in it because obviously it's about salsa. But he who pays the piper calls the tunes. So I get to choose which pictures go in. So that's an illustration I did of myself, but I didn't say anything about it. I just did the illustration. I really enjoyed doing the illustration. I did all these. That's going to be a T-shirt as well. Pretty exciting. I love those illustrations there of the Neo gods. Anyone's been to Japan will recall seeing them in the temples. So that's that there. I've got an explanation of them too in the book. These are the one on the right always has his mouth open. He's voicing the sound ah, and the one on the left always has his mouth closed, so that's the yin and the yang, and he's voicing the sound So between them it's Om, which is the Amen to the Christians, Amen to the Muslims, Om to the Buddhists and the Hindus. So they represent the yin and yang, or the primordial masculine, feminine, Adam and Eve. The primal sound in the beginning was the word, okay, and that word, the word is vibration, and that vibration, the primal vibration, is the sound Om, and this is what they're voicing, Om, like that. Anyway, a little bit of fun history there. This is the whole, so this is it. I'm pretty excited. It's getting so close. I'm off to Cairns again next Wednesday. So whether I can do next Friday or not, if I do, I'll be in Cairns to do it. But next Wednesday to Friday, Willie and I are finalizing everything. They are like the dogs, Mike, 100%. The Okinawan dogs are the representative, and also the Chinese guys. Look, they all originate from the influence of India, like Solsai said. in Shingi Tai, that the spiritual mental part is mostly influenced from India. Well, there you go. That's interesting too, Tigray. Interesting. So I'm pretty excited. I'll be in Cairns from Wednesday night. I'll be with Willie all Thursday, all Friday. Then I fly back to the Gold Coast early Saturday for my son's birthday. But anyway, you can see I like this layout on the iPad because it's, and I'm not selling it as an ebook, but I'm just using this iPad to help me. There's some illustrations of Solsai, but to help me, and Oishi Shihan, he's a great technician. He's 70 years old and he still moves like he's 25. Gary again. So anyway, it just gives me an opportunity to share that. Oh, this is great. Anyone in Australia, like Paddy Pinto, you got to get Pete on. I gave you his number. I hope you're able to sort something out with him soon, but he works long hours. And he's very taciturn sort of bloke, Paddy. I guarantee if you have an interview with him, the interview will be, he'll be like this. Yep. Yep. That's all. He's a man of very few words. But anyway, for the rest of the world, this is young Ben here, Ben Ajamian. He's my Shihandai. He's only third dan. He's my sensei at the dojo when I'm not there. But this is Pete Collis. And he's a legend. He was my main rival. I fought him in 2 finals in the Australian titles. I beat him once. He beat me another time. And he beat me in the Queensland titles once as well. But he fought in the 3rd world tournament, made the final 16 in the 3rd world tournament. But he made the final in the Australians 10 years in a row, 5 times second, 5 times first. He's literally a legend. And he did his 4th dan in Japan in front of Hasegawa Shihan and Oishi. I may have mentioned this a few years ago. I mean, he's like 56 now. He was in grade 8 when I was in grade 12 at school. But at 56, I think he'd be now 57 maybe. So he did his grading at about 54 and he smashed it. They both walked up to him, Hasegawa Shihan and were you there, Paddy? You may have even been there for that. He and Pete Brennan did their 4th dan, and I tell you, Pete smashed everyone. He outdid the 20-year-olds and the 30-year-olds. So here we go. This is the book, and I'm really happy with it. And this brings me to where I'm thinking now. I'd like to read today because this is a section I don't think I have read yet, which is the section, let me go back a little bit, on the early belts, on the beginner's level belts. So, and I've had a lot of good feedback over the years from instructors who say that they use this section on the beginner's colored belts to help them formulate an ongoing step-by-step process for teaching in the dojo. Tigray, you like my t-shirt? This is from the New Zealand Kiwis when I worked with them a number of years ago. Kia ora, boys. Hope you're all well. That was Benji was the captain, and of course Steve was the coach. And anyway, we had a great time for a few days. That's when they competed in the 4 nations, and they won the final. Great time. It was a real honor. So I'm going to read a little bit today, but I'm just having fun, just chatting to people about the book and so on. So by all means, get your no, the All Blacks are no, yeah, it's not the All Blacks, it's the Kiwis. I've never worked with the All Blacks. I've worked with some individual All Blacks, but never worked with the All Blacks as a team. They just don't know what they're missing out on. The Kyokushin spirit. At some stage there, the Kiwis were, yeah, exactly. Kia ora to the whole Kyokushin whanau. That's true. And I have my good buddy, Ryan Tongia, if you're there. Ryan played professional rugby for the team over in Napier. They won the Super Cup or whatever it is, the international competition a few years back. And Ryan and I've known Ryan since a little boy. His brother Tyrone is the boxer that I work with. So my family connection to the Tongias and their uncle, obviously, Wally Schnaubelt's pretty deep. And Ryan and his beautiful wife, Rachel. I've told the story about Rachel. I mean, she knows more about rugby than 99% of the men in the world because she was captain of the New Zealand touch team for like 48 tests. You know, she really knows her. Bonjour, Francis. How are you, buddy? Good to see you. Okay, so I'm going to read from this beginner's colors section. Shoshinsha no Obi. This is the white belt. Please leave messages, level of purity and potential. And by the way, Patreon, I always say thank you. I'm going to start to list the names of my Patreon family on the videos too. But I really appreciate it, and it makes all the difference. It allows me to continue doing what I'm doing. If you're not a Patreon member, you feel like it, by all means, jump along, get in, have a look at my Patreon page. Otherwise, you can look right here too and share this video, because if we get 22 to 25 people come along and highlight a couple of things here, see if I can make it work. If I get 22 or 25 people come along here, well, we don't really get a lot of legs out of that, but what we do get is an opportunity for people to share. So if everybody shared it with a few people, make all the difference. This is Patty coming up. I'm just going to highlight Patty Pinto's Kyokushin. I don't know why it didn't work. Well, I've got it now. There we go. I've gone the long way around, but this is Patty Pinto's channel. He's got exclusive for us. He's let us know that he has an interview tonight with Hunchy Doug Holloway, who was the first non-Japanese to train at the Hombu Dojo back in 1964 when he was a young 18-year-old. Now, of course, he's a lawyer in New Zealand. Paul, keep see him, and Clarence. To see you, Clarence. I watched a movie about South Africa the other day. It was very, very interesting, very enjoyable. It was a movie, not a doc. So anyway, talking about the white belt, level of purity and potential. Both black and white, rarely if ever, in their purest form, occur in nature, and so both phenomena are often regarded as non-colors. White reflects all light waves and absorbs none because it already contains all the light of the color spectrum. The white belt thus symbolizes the potential of the new student to achieve the other grades. You have it in you, and training will bring it out. Emerson reminds us that only which we have within can be set out. You dream for, all you hope for, is already hidden inside. It is like a precious stone encrusted with layers of mud that need only be chipped away with the chisel of determination and faith. Nun In, a Japanese master during the Meiji era, received a university professor who came to inquire about Zen. Nun In served tea. He poured the visitor's cup full and then kept pouring. The professor watched the overflow until he could no longer restrain himself. It's over full, no more will go in. Like this cup, Nun In said, you're full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup? How often do we see that, where you see, even if you just sit down with someone for a conversation, very rarely is it a conversation, it's just people wanting to impress upon you their opinions, and they don't really care about your opinion. Particularly, that's something you see in their mind where they want to be. They rarely listen to opinions. White is a symbol of purity. The new student at white belt level is said to be pure because he is completely ignorant of the requirements of the art and utterly lacking in experience of it. The white belt's heart is full of hope From this hope sprouts the first enthusiasm to train and learn, structure and learn to act reflexively according to his directions. From the first sit-up, the absoluteness of the white belt is gone forever, so there is no turning back. The belt absorbs sweat and dust particles and loses its pristine color, and the journey upwards through the color spectrum begins. Set goals in training and will in the life of the karateka. It is mukyu, the level of no rank. The reason it is so important is because it represents a far higher rank than what you were doing even one day before you joined. All the new techniques, the rules, the requirements of the dojo, and the new demands on the body and mind can bury the most important points at this level. That with debris you take and distance you journey is up to you and only you. As a white belt, there is no rush. Concentrate on learning the basic dojo guidelines of etiquette and develop the habit of attending training regularly. Work steadily on your fitness. Get used to the way the general training session progresses. That's another thing that I'm really, I spoke a bit about on Monday. We get used to the way the sessions progress. And as you get older, and anyone who's been training for a reasonable length of time will confirm, I mean, one of the beauties of training for a fair length of time is that you're old enough to make up your own mind, and you get to choose what you want to do and what you don't want to do. Up to a certain rank, you have to keep pushing on, and you have to keep dedicated towards fulfilling the requirements of each level. Okay, and that's very, very important. But after a certain point, and I'm talking about maybe fifth or sixth dan or so, well, then you have the opportunity of actually choosing what you want to do, and you put your experience in and use that to tweak the results. So all training is optimized towards obtaining results, optimal results, not necessarily maximal results, because I've seen that too often where people get maximal results, but at what cost? If having the most powerful kick in the world means you can't walk after 35 or 40 because you've smashed your knees and hips, well, then that's a big price to pay. So it's never achieving maximal results. It's always achieving optimal results. And that's very important. And so the whole thing about the teaching philosophy and tweaking what you do, you have to become familiar with the way the dojo runs so that you can walk into any dojo anywhere in the world and join in, or if you're asked to teach a class in a way that they're first of all familiar with before you start introducing new stuff. Concentrate on learning the basic dojo guidelines of etiquette and develop the habit of attending training regularly. Work steadily on your fitness. Get used to the way the general training session progresses. Demonstrate to yourself that you are willing to make the required effort. No one minds that you haven't yet grasped a particular technique. If you show that you are willing to do what it takes to learn, everyone will be happy to help. The unspoken rule of the dojo is that one is only recognized for one's willingness to make the effort. There is no shame in being a white belt. Wear it with pride. Even the black belt instructor was a white belt once. Above all, try your hardest. That is all that is asked. And then I have a quote from Matsuyama. Oh, it's Carl. Good to see you, man. Look at my t-shirt. You'll be happy with that. Carl's my buddy from the Gold Coast, but he's a through and through Kiwi. This is from the Kiwis footy team, as you know. This is a quote from Masayama. Human beings are capable of virtually limitless degradation. They are also capable of virtually limitless improvement and achievement. Success depends on goals and on diligence in pursuing them. So that's the white belt section. Next is the red and orange belt section. I've got a big footnote here talking about how when I wrote the first book, I described it as red belt. And it was at a time when some countries were adopting the red belt, and Australia was one of them. So of course you didn't ask questions, you just did what you were told. But red belt is normally preserved for much higher ranks, usually 6th, 7th, 8th, 10th, and things like that. So anyway, and in general, use an orange belt. Red belt is only used by a couple of organizations. So 10th and 9th kyu is the stability level. Red corresponds to the mass or obstruction quality. It is the color of the Muladhara chakra. Every time I read this, I don't know whether I've read it to you or not before. I mean, I'm reading it so often, every day, week after week, just going over it again and again. I can't remember whether I've read it here or somewhere else. If I've read this before and you don't want to hear it, just let me know. Just, leave a message and we can move on to something else. Just can't remember. It is the color of the Muladhara chakra, the coccygeal spinal center, whose element is earth, the grossest of the elements. After a few months of serious training, the new student's belt will have become somewhat soiled and hence a slightly darker shade. This is all very, very metaphoric, of course. Don't worry about whether your belt's getting darker or not. At this point, one prepares for the first grading, the red-orange belt. Red/orange belt. One leaves the white of non-color for the first serious step on the path of development. Us, namaste, Raj. Good to see you, man. There may be the occasional dojo where the orange belt is still not used, as was previously practiced at the Hombu. What I mean is, when I first trained at Hombu, there was no 10th and 9th kyu. It went straight to 8th kyu, so it went straight to light blue belt. If this applies to you, the information in this chapter should be applied as a continuation of training before the grading for 8th kyu. Even without the orange belt, the level required before the student grades for the light blue belt is the same. Don't rush. Remember that the color of the belt is only symbolic. More important is a steady, logical progression through the ranks. For the student aiming for the orange belt, the earth element means that the training is focused on stability. The major priority is understanding and developing a strong base. This comes through concentrated practice of the stability stances. So that's the Yoi stance, the Zen Kutsudachi, Sanchin, and Kibadachi, and control of posture when moving in these stances. Japanese martial arts in particular place significance in training and strengthening the lower half of the body, from the hips down to the toes. Sosei Oyama often reminded us, Tachi Sannen, 3 years for the stance. The karateka begins his serious journey by learning to feel the proper stance. Train to become increasingly used to the physical demands of deep stances with the legs deeply bent. The legs will gradually become strong. With improved stability comes an elementary awareness of dynamic balance. I haven't made reference to the higher grades returning your training, putting a white belt on. That's, you're referring to yourself there, of course. But I have later on in the black belt, I do make reference to that. Not so much that you actually take your black belt off and a photo of it, but symbolically you turn to the white belt because your black belt gets so old and frayed that it becomes more white than black. So Harry went away from training for a while and he's come back and he's put a white belt on. Well, good on him for doing that. That's what he's referring to. But yeah, I did say in the book how when you keep training over the years, your black belt becomes almost white again. Fundamental control of balance in karate comes through learning to feel your weight settle low through relaxing the shoulders, closing the waki, the armpits. This is the waki area here. And Sosa used to say all the time, waki o shimete, waki o shimete, waki o shimete, waki o shimeyo. Close your armpits. What he's saying is relax the shoulder, because if there's any tension in the shoulders, the armpits open. When there's tension in the shoulders, all the problems start. The center of gravity slightly lifts. Your ability to move on your legs changes. Your reaction timing through the shoulder and arm decreases. It's also said that 90% of all problems can be related to excessive tension in the shoulder. So that's what he means by close the waki. And place the attention at the tundan, the single point at the lower abdomen, the center of mental focus and physical balance. This promotes good posture, which, as Masayama explained, is the key to martial arts mastery. Correct posture allows you to hear a part clearly, focus fully on his intentions as well as your own, and move with optimal, relaxed efficiency. Through this training, a basic but practical sensitivity in the feet and legs is developed. One feels when the stance is correct. Fudo, that is immovability, power and progress are built upon a solid foundation. This foundation is not only within yourself, it exists also in your training environment, the dojo. For progression to come steadily, the student preparing for this first level should be thoroughly conversant with the etiquette and procedures of the dojo, upon which training and the life of a karateka are based. Mike, plus, if you get hit under the armpit, it knocks the stuff out. Yeah, that's for sure. We used to, you turn the lat in to block the kick. But if you don't turn the lat in and the kick comes digging in under here, definitely not a lot of joy there. If you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm just skipping back to this exact section in the book because I've found a typo and I'm going to fix it on the run, if that's okay. Where are we here? 3 qualities. Light blue belt. Is that where I'm up to? No, I'm up to orange belt, the page before. Bang, solid foundation. Yeah, please forgive me, but if I don't fix this, I'll never find it again. There we go, found the typo. Where it was meant to be white belt, it said the wild belt. The white belt, preparing for orange belt, is conscious of karate in gross terms, and his karate reflects this. The awareness is primarily in the body's solid muscle, tissue, and bone, and training concentrates there. It is not unusual to hear senior students referring to white and orange belts as being all bone or all knees and elbows in sparring. That is where the beginner's consciousness is centered. Focus on making sure you have movements into stages, work on each stage with precision, then reconstruct the movement, building up speed over time. This is very good even for movements in stances. Start very slowly and build up speed whilst maintaining perfect form. In Kumite, the focus is on maintaining good posture in the fighting stance. The gaze is at the opponent's eyes. The stance is deep, strong, and mobile. The upper body is relaxed and shaped correctly with the elbows in and hands up. That's the other thing too, is in my dojo, you'll never say, that's like I've told myself 5 million times not to exaggerate. But it's not that I never say hands up, but I'll rarely say hands up. What I'll say is elbows up and forward, because if your elbows are up and forward, your hands by their nature are in the correct position. But if your hands are in the correct position, your elbows can be completely wrong and you get that kick under the armpit that Mike Clark's referring to. So it's not having your hands up, it's having your arms and elbows in the correct position. So this is what I call default position, getting the stance right. At this level, Kumite is about developing the default position, getting the fighting stance right, adjusting it as necessary to best defend against all the primary attacks. Build the right base, shape and gaze in the stance, and everything else will grow from there. Basic techniques are learned first by simply knowing where the different body parts should be and when they should be there. Matters of generating maximum power in the technique come later. after a basic awareness of body positioning and coordination between all the body parts. See, this is the thing that people overlook. That they rush in to go punching somebody, and if you're strong and got half a brain, of course you can hurt someone if you just punch with a bare fist. But the white belt and the red belt, they're building stability, and by building that stability, you're creating a foundation to allow the body to generate that force. Once again, you could say maximal force, because there is times where you want to develop maximal force, but again, I use optimal because maximal force may cost you your balance. You have to question everything in all the ranges. If I throw this technique, what is the upside and downside? If it means that the power to throw that kick, my hands go wow like that, but in the meantime, you just get a little tap under the jaw. So now I've got to go, okay, let me not go for maximal power, let me go for optimal power, which means I have to put 10% of my shape and consciousness into defense. So it means when I throw that kick now, boom, this hand by its nature should come up. There's a dojo in Australia, out western New South Wales, run by a guy named Mark Tyson. I'm not sure if Marky's still training. Mark was one of the best, man. I mean, I mentioned him before. He had the fastest knockout, I think, in the 5th World Tournament. He was sensational for his bump, step off to the side, crack with that roundhouse kick. And he trained a young lad named Paddy Pinto. You've had him on, John. His surname slipped me. I'm having a brain blank today. Hope it's not the beginning of my downfall. John Halford, his name was. This kid was a great fighter, a genuinely courageous, great fighter. Again, one of those people in the Kyokushin world you never hear about. But he went from Kyokushin, he won Kyokushin Nationals. He went into kickboxing and won, I think, Muay Thai as well, won world titles in that. And this is another area. How much more have I got of this? I'm going to read to the end of this, then we'll digress. Because you know me, I can go off on tangents and never finish. Matters of generating maximum power and the technique come later after a basic awareness of body positioning and coordination between all the body parts. Get the balance right. Get the body parts in the right place. That is the most important point at this stage. We're talking about the orange-red belt. In this way, one lays the foundation for a strong and direct path towards technical mastery. Miyamoto Musashi compares the way of a life in the martial arts to the life of a carpenter, who must have good tools that are constantly honed to their sharpest if he is to produce fine work. There's a quote from Masayama: I saw that the aims must be as large and as high as possible, and I realized that perseverance and a step-by-step progress are the only way to reach a goal along a chosen path. By the time this first grading arrives, foundation habits of physical fitness are established. One adopts a new lifestyle of ambition, gratitude, persistence, and vitality. Establish a commitment to attending classes regularly. Overcome self-defeating stubbornness that resists the drive to better oneself by trying to keep one away from the dojo at the slightest trifling excuse. The orange belt should be enthusiastic in training and treasure dreams of greater things to come. So that's the red belt section. Tangents teach a lot. And I was going to go off on a tangent, but I've essentially forgotten that tangent now. I should have a little notebook with me. I'm pretty tired. I think that's probably why I'm forgetting all these things. At the end of the day, everything binds into everything. You have the 7-stage Kumite mastery, which I've spoken about numerous times. And the first step of the 7-stage Kumite mastery is default position. Well, default position is simply having all the body parts in the right place at the right time, so that if your opponent catches you completely off guard without even moving a muscle, you've protected 90% of the dangerous spots. So if you have a good on guard position, it should allow you to be safe under pressure, even if you don't see the technique, to a point. And that was one of the tangents. Mark Tyson from out of Tamworth Dojo, man, that guy was good. And his student, John Halford, I generally think, John Halford, yes, what a story. I generally think John Halford, I think he was around in an era when Dom was fighting, Gary was fighting. I remember once Dom beat him in the Nationals, but they decided to reverse the decision. That was always a funny one. Personally, of course, you want Dom to win, but the reality was it was so close that I was whilst I was upset that for some reason the decision was changed, I'm 100% happy for John Halford to win. This guy was good, man, and his kickboxing. And see, there's another thing that I've spoken about. See if I can find it. I'll just leave that section there. I'm going to go back because I've rewritten a certain section of the book, and I think it's worth rereading. I talk a little bit about the Tokyo Hombu Dojo and the years following that. We're getting close now. Here we are. So I talk about now I may have read this before, but I know that I've rewritten it. And the reason I rewrote it was John Blooming and Kenji Kurosaki, the Devil Kurosaki, they called him. He's the godfather of kickboxing in Japan. He was the coach that took the guys to Thailand in '64. He was a coach, and I've seen photos and images. As a coach, you're as fit and strong as your fighters, you're doing something wrong. Because your objective as a coach is to optimize the ability and strength of your fighters. There isn't an Olympic coach in the world who can compete at the Olympic level if his students or athletes are winning gold medals. I mean, if he was, he'd be fighting. He'd be in the competition himself. So Kurosaki was the coach. He wasn't a fighter. But what happened was these guys here. Oh, there you go. I've opened it right on this page. See that? This is the Kyokushin team that was selected to go to Thailand. You see, Fujihira, Nakamura Tadashi, Oyama Yasuhiko, and Okada. This one right in the middle, the one in the middle of all five of them. I'm just going to drop this here. This one here, Okada. He was also chosen. Now, this is Kurosaki here. He's watching them train. He was the one responsible for taking them through the training that they needed to do. He wasn't a fighter. But what happened was it got postponed, then postponed, then postponed again. So it got to the point, Okada he had responsibilities at work. Oyama Yasuhiko was studying law at university. And at that time, he just said, I can't keep doing this. I'm sorry, but I have my law studies. I've got exams coming up. So two of them had to drop out, which meant Kurosaki had to step in. Now, that event was where the word kickboxing was born. The event was organized and promoted by a famous guy named Noguchi Osamu. His father was an All Japan boxer. His brother was an All Japan boxing champion. He was a promoter, and he coined the word kickboxing. I know there's some Americans who say they coined it, but no, it was Kurosaki and Noguchi. And this guy, this is where this event when Kyokushin fought in Thailand was where kickboxing was born as a sport. They could have just gone with Muay Thai, but Muay Thai, you got to remember, when people are coming through the ranks and everything and they don't have the same upbringing as Thais, like the headbutts and the way they do the technique, and even the knees for some people was a little bit too overwhelming. So they changed the rules a little bit. Now I'm going to reread this section again. You'll get the drift, what I mean by why I rewrote it and why I think it's important, and why guys like John Halford are important. Peter Graham, the Kyokushin black belt who went into K1. And today in MMA, there are so many good karate guys, not just Kyokushin, but karate guys as well, who are really making waves in MMA. Even Georges St-Pierre he was predominantly a BJJ and grappling guy, but Joe and he, as a child, started Kyokushin. So I think that's a really important point, and I make this point, and please let me know what you think. So this is the section in the history, Tokyo, Hombu, and Kyokushin. The previous structure on the Hombu dojo site was demolished and building commenced in October 63. The Hombu dojo building that Masoyama eventually lived and taught at was officially opened in June 64, although classes had been conducted for a few months prior. It was at this time that Oyama Karate adopted the name Kyokushin, the ultimate truth. The success of Oyama's instructors in Thailand attracted a new wave of students to the newly opened dojo. In Japan, it has often been said that Masoyama, accepting the Muay Thai challenge in their own stadium with their own rules and coming away victorious, was the real starting point for Kyokushin's meteoric rise in popularity, particularly in Japan. It really took off. Yeah, Kings of the Square Ring. I'll have to look at that. I'm pretty sure I've seen it, but it has been a long while. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things about Kyokushin history that would make a good movie. The experience and the particular interest in Muay Thai that Kurosaki took influenced the Kyokushin style of kicking. Low thigh kicks and the use of the shin in Mawashi-geri roundhouse kicks, as opposed to the traditional ball of the foot and instep, became a trademark of the Kyokushin fighting style. In some karate styles today, they still don't really teach to kick with the shin. They teach to kick with the instep. And it's the styles that have gone into full contact fighting and so on, and ring fighting, all stem from Kyokushin as a general rule. In 1966, thanks, yeah, in 1966, Kurosaki was sent by Masoyama to teach Kyokushin in Holland. He stayed for 1 year teaching at the dojo of John Blooming. Kurosaki's influence on the growth of Kyokushin karate in Holland, and later the birth and development of Holland's unique flavor of kickboxing, was significant. Holland has produced some of the world's most successful Kyokushin and kickboxing athletes alike. It has often been asked what it is that makes the Dutch kickboxers and stand-up fighters as a whole so formidable. You look at even Kyokushin, you got Eric Costanza, my hero, Peter Schmidt, Michelle Vadel, the Gordeau brothers, Nico. Look, they slipped my mind. There's so many of them. Yes. I mean, his nickname was Oni, the Devil Kurosaki, because of how hard he used to make guys train. He was a devil of an instructor, put it that way, if you like, very demanding. And well, I'll read a bit here, I think. It is often underappreciated. In a nutshell, let me start that paragraph again. It has often been asked what it is that makes the Dutch kickboxers and stand-up fighters as a whole so formidable. In a nutshell, they don't draw upon boxing and Muay Thai alone, which every kickboxing gym does. It is the often underappreciated third element, the deep connection to Kyokushin and its indefatigable fighting spirit of Budo karate. The owners of the major champion gyms all trained in Kyokushin and all bring that quality of the spirit of Us, Budo Seishin, the Budo spirit of Kyokushin, to their training. In March 1969, the same year that Masoyama held the first All-Japan full contact karate tournament, Kurosaki opened the Mejiro Gym, which became Japan's leading home of kickboxing. And he became known as the godfather of kickboxing. He maintained a strong presence and influence in the Japanese fighting world until his passing in 2019. Fujihira Akio, one of the original Kyokushin Muay Thai team members, trained at the Mejiro Gym under Kurosaki and in 1971, fighting under the name of Osawa Noboru, which means to overcome a great drawback. So he was 5'2", you know. He wouldn't have been 55 kilograms. Yes, that's not a bad book at all, is it? I've got some great stuff on John Jarvis that I've put in since last time too, Mike. I haven't spoken to him directly, but one of my good friends who you'll know, Dennis May, I was chatting to him the other day, and he just happened to be on his way round to see John Jarvis and spend some time with him. So I asked if he could ask John Jarvis if he could supply me a little bit of material. And he sent me, after he got back, Dennis May sent me an article from John Jarvis about the 100-man kumite. So in 1971, fighting under the name of Osawa Noboru, Fujihira took out the country's first bantamweight kickboxing title. In all, Fujihira had 67 bouts for 56 victories, 50 by knockout, 8 losses, and 3 draws. Osawa, at only 155 centimeters, which is 5'2", was labeled Little Oyama for his feats of strength that belied his small stature, as well as his Masoyama-like willingness to accept the challenges of tough training with untiring consistency. Before becoming a kickboxer, Osawa had 11 professional boxing matches for a 10-1 record. He also freely accepted challenges from Thai kickboxers, where the usually partisan crowd admired him greatly, and called him Little Osawa with a big heart. It is said that Osawa, combining his Kyokushin fighting spirit with the severe demands of Devil Kurosaki, as his trainer was known, was the hardest training kickboxer in the world. I'm looking for a particular section. But what I included was, and I may have done it earlier on, I think it's really interesting. What I said was, maybe it's not in this, maybe I haven't transferred it. Yeah, I don't know that Gerard Gordeau's ever done so far. The whole idea of that first UFC was nothing more than a marketing thing for BJJ. He may have spent time in Western Australia. I don't know, Marco. But what I said was this. Look, if I can find it, I think it's really worth reading. I'll go back and I'll do a search for it in the actual file that I'm reading. What could I use? See if that comes up. There we go. But really what I pointed out, I'll find it. Oh, here we go. What I pointed out was when Masoyama left Sonei-chu, it was a very interesting experience, and I've mentioned that in the book. he basically could no longer fit, you know. When Oyama felt that the time was right to realize his dream and create his own karate, he knew it was necessary to separate from his beloved teacher, Sonei Chu. No matter which way Oyama looked at it, he could no longer fit. His vision took him beyond a dojo, beyond Japan, and 30 years into the future, and a worldwide family of like-minded karateka polishing their lives through the secret of sweat. The young protege, the intuitive So, also realized it was time. This was, after all, what he had been helping his young protege to achieve. Oyama went to his teacher's office. This was told to me by one of Oyama's and one of Sonei Chu's contemporaries. Told me this story. He was a Shitoryu ninth dan. He went to his teacher's office. They sat together without words. After a silence of perhaps an hour, Oyama stood and bowed deeply to his teacher. I must leave. His teacher stood and with equal gravity bowed deeply in return. I understand. Nothing more was said. Oyama departed, the humble and loving thought of his teacher remaining deep in his heart for the rest of his days. Who can fathom the mind of masters? So also continued to give his blessing to his students. Albeit from afar, he was very close to Oyama's most important supporters, including Mori Matsuhei. So was proud of Oyama's achievements in relation to Oyama establishing the Kyokushin Honbu Dojo. So said, for the sake of spreading karate even more widely around the world and to help provide a suitable venue for students from all over the world to gather and train, many of support Oyama the establishment of that building, referring to Honbu. That's really interesting. But what I was getting at was just as Masoyama no longer, like a round peg in a square hole, fit. He felt he couldn't fit any longer in the Goju world of Sonei Chu and Yamaguchi Gogen. Kurosaki was the same many years later when he returned from Thailand, and he was the one who lost the fight. He was 35 years old. He had no intention of fighting. He just filled the void and did okay till he got whacked with an almighty elbow right in the neck or face. But anyway, he was the same. As Kyokushin started to formulate and change to become the more popular style of fighting, that is the full contact tournament without the head punches, because if you do head punches, you need gloves. And if you need gloves, you're not really, everything changes with bare fist, as you know. Yes, that is the whole building, Mike. Exactly, that's the one. You were right. You got it spot on. You found it. So in the same way, Kurosaki felt he could no longer fit like a round peg in a square hole, and he left Kyokushin. Now, just as I believe Masoyama's influence in the karate world was really quite significant, it had an effect. It introduced full contact karate to the world and so on. Did that lag for a second? I'm not too sure. But in the same way, when Kurosaki left Kyokushin, he had a very powerful influence in the professional and full contact fighting world. So if you think about it, kickboxing as we know it, you had the Muay Thai fighters with their history. You had some kickboxers over on the west coast of the USA, like Benny the Jet and so on. They were starting to do boxing, but it was more no leg kicks. It was just like boxing with, they came up with the rules of, it was a boxing match, but you had to throw a minimum of 8 kicks. So really what it was, guys with good boxing skills would get in and throw 8 kicks, and then the rest of the round they just punch. But Kurosaki had this huge influence after he left Kyokushin on the professional world. And so this is why I'm very adamant that the influence of Kyokushin in the professional fight world, you look at even today, K1, most, if not all the fighters in K1, except for very few exceptions, Most of them have either trained Kyokushin, or even Sato Kaikan that ran K1 was a breakaway from Ashihara and Kyokushin. You had all the Dutch kickboxers, the Peter Ertz and all those guys. They're all trained by the top Kyokushin guys. All those guys trained in Kyokushin. The Johann Voss gym, Chakuriki gym, Mejiro gym, all these gyms in Holland were run by Kyokushin guys. So just as Oyama leaving Goju created a whole new area of karate, Kurosaki leaving Kyokushin just expanded the world of professional fighting to a degree that I don't think many people really honor. And I never met Kurosaki Sensei. To be quite honest, I think he pretty well left Kyokushin before I got there, so I was never in a position to. I've met Osawa Noboru Fujihira Senpai, as we call him. I knew Fujihira Senpai, but I didn't know Kurosaki. So anyway, we digressed there, got right away, but I hope that was interesting. And I'll when you get the book, I'll dig it up. But that I've rewritten a whole section there pointing that out, where I think Kurosaki leaving Kyokushin, whilst it was unfortunate at that time, was actually really, really important for the world of the martial arts, because it did create that incredible professional world. So pretty well, Kurosaki was the professional Kyokushin world. Okay, I'm going to wind it up there. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time once again. Time moves on. Thank you, everybody, for your time. I hope I didn't digress too much, and I hope you enjoyed that little peek of seeing the book. The illustrations go on and on. I'm really happy with some of these illustrations. I don't know if you see them. I can highlight them there. There's a nice one of Solsai meditating, page after page. My own little Enso there. What's happened? Boom. And so got a lot more illustrations towards the back. There's another one there. That's the calligraphies. This one too. See that one at the bottom there? That's Matsui, but that's another example of what you can do with Kyoto Skuro, the light and dark on the page. That's a pen. You can see if you look close up, it's just it's pixelated because it's not a high resolution image as it will be in the book. But I just love doing those illustrations. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you Monday. Appreciate that. Have a good weekend. Thanks, Mike. Rob De Souza, good on you. Shane, you hung in there the whole time. Good on you, Shane. Hope the gym's going well, and I hope you're back. Was Frederick, got your message. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But yeah, very interesting times for you. Was Harry, Pal, Marco. Yeah, good on you. I think a lot of them are in the second book too. Sven, thanks for hanging in there. Good to see you. Thanks. Roger. Was Sian. Thank you, Sian. Look forward to getting. Yeah, good on you. Thanks, Roger. Rochelle, thanks everybody. Mac, good to see you. You're up early or up late? Up early, aren't you? Must be the crack of dawn there. Like literally 5 or 6 in the morning now. Although London's an hour ahead for summertime, I think, eh? So it must be about 7:09 in the morning. Is that correct? I'm just guessing. Well, thank you, everybody. See ya.